The debris field stretched endlessly through the void, a cemetery of alien hulks and human dreams. Jude's salvage ship, the Tinkerer, drifted between the skeletal remains of a Hegemony cruiser and what looked like a Zephyrian cargo hauler. His weathered hands worked methodically over the scanner console, hazel eyes scanning for anything valuable enough to justify the fuel costs. "Another day, another graveyard," he muttered, sketching invisible calculations in the air with his scarred knuckles. The perpetual grease stain on his angular jaw caught the console's blue glow as he leaned closer. "Come on, give me something good." The scanner pinged softly, metal debris, mostly worthless. But then, a different tone, higher pitched. Jude's tired eyes sharpened. His fingers danced across the controls, honing in on the signal's source, a half-destroyed human transport. Its hull breached in 3 places, floating dead in space. "Well, well," he murmured, already reaching for his repair kit. "What secrets are you hiding?" The Tinkerer's docking clamps engaged with a metallic thunk that echoed through the ship. Jude sealed his helmet, checked his tools twice, habit born from too many close calls, and cycled through the airlock. The transport's corridor was a maze of twisted metal and floating debris, emergency lighting casting eerie shadows that made him pause every few steps. His boots clanged against the deck plating as he made his way to what remained of the bridge. The command console flickered weakly, its power cell somehow still functional after whatever had killed this ship. Jude's hands moved with practiced efficiency, bypassing damaged circuits and rerouting power flows. "Come on, beauty," he whispered, fingers flying over the interface. "Talk to me." The console flared to life, data streams cascading across the cracked screen. Most of it was corrupted, but buried in the digital wreckage, something caught his attention. A transmission log, recent enough to make his pulse quicken. The timestamp made him blink twice. "That's impossible," he breathed, but his scanner confirmed it. The signal was human in origin, but unlike any human tech he'd ever seen. The encryption was ancient, yet sophisticated beyond anything the scattered human settlements possessed. Behind him, metal groaned. Jude spun, his hand instinctively reaching for the plasma cutter on his belt. 3 figures in powered armor floated through the breach in the hull, crushed scavengers, their chitinous shells gleaming in the emergency lighting. Their leader, a massive brute with scarred mandibles, raised a pulse weapon. "Human scum," it clicked in broken standard. "This wreck is ours." Jude's laugh was dry as desert sand. "Funny thing about possession, Bugface. You actually have to be here first." His fingers never stopped working on the console behind him, copying the mysterious signal to his portable drive. "And seeing as I'm already elbow-deep in this bird's guts..." The Kresh warrior's weapon hummed with building charge. "Step away or we take your ship too." "Counter-offer," Jude said, his voice dropping to that dangerous calm his few friends had learned to fear. "You turn around, fly back to whatever rock you crawled out from under, and we all pretend this never happened." The lead Kresh's mandibles clicked with what might have been laughter. 3 against 1, human, poor odds." "For you, maybe." Jude's hand moved to his belt, fingers closing around a small device. "See, I've been in this business a long time. Long enough to know that scavengers like you never check for traps." The Kresh warrior's eyes widened just as Jude triggered the device. The transport's emergency systems, damaged but not destroyed, responded to the override code he'd uploaded. Emergency klaxons blared as the ship's remaining atmosphere vented through the hull breaches, creating a violent windstorm that sent the Kresh tumbling. Jude used the chaos to his advantage, grabbing a support beam and swinging himself toward the airlock. His magnetic boots found purchase on the deck, plating just as the atmosphere finished venting. The Kresh, caught off guard, struggled to regain control in the sudden vacuum. "Jude!" The voice crackled through his comm system. "Alexa," monitoring from her position aboard the Tinkerer. "Whatever you're doing over there, do it faster. I'm picking up 3 more Kresh ships on approach." "Copy that," Jude replied, his scarred knuckles white around the data drive. "Package secured, coming home." He launched himself toward the airlock, the Kresh finally recovering enough to give chase. Pulse bolts sizzled past his helmet as he dove through the opening. The Tinkerer's engines were already spinning up by the time he cleared the airlock, Alexa's fingers dancing over the pilot controls with the same precision she brought to decoding alien languages. "Hold on," she called back, her voice tight with concentration. The ship lurched as the engines engaged, throwing them clear of the debris field just as the Kresh reinforcements arrived. "What did you find over there?" Jude pulled off his helmet, his dark hair plastered with sweat. The grease stain on his jaw had picked up a new companion, a streak of coolant from the damaged transport. "Something that shouldn't exist," he said, holding up the data drive. "A human signal, but not like anything we've ever built." Alexa's green eyes sharpened, her fingers already drumming against the pilot's console, a sure sign her analytical mind was spinning up to full speed. "Define not like anything we've ever built." "The encryption is pre-diaspora," Jude explained, slumping into the co-pilot's seat. "But the tech signature, Alexa, this is centuries beyond what Earth had when the colonies scattered. Hell, it's beyond what we have now." She turned to face him fully, her worn tablet already in her hands. "Show me." Jude slotted the drive into the ship's computer, watching as streams of data flowed across the main display. Alexa's eyes tracked the information with the intensity of a predator stalking prey, her fingers automatically translating the alien characters that had somehow become integrated into the human code. "This is," she paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Jude, this isn't just a signal, it's coordinates." "Coordinates to what?" Her tablet chimed softly as she cross-referenced the data with her xenohistorical databases. When she looked up, her pale face was flushed with excitement. "To something that was supposed to be a legend, the Lost Fleet." Jude felt his blood chill. Every human in the galaxy knew the stories. Earth's final gambit, launched just before the homeworld went dark. A massive warfleet, built in secret, equipped with humanity's most advanced technology. It had vanished into the void 3 centuries ago, leaving behind only whispers and desperate hope. "That's impossible," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The fleet is a fairy tale, something to keep the colony kids from giving up hope." "Maybe," Alexa replied, her fingers still drumming against the tablet. "But this signal, it's not just giving us coordinates. It's calling to us, Jude, in languages that haven't been spoken in 300 years. The ship's proximity alarm chimed softly. On the scanner, the Kresh ships were maintaining distance but keeping pace, watching, waiting. "We need to move," Jude said, his engineer's mind already calculating fuel costs and navigation hazards. "If this gets out, every scavenger and warlord in the sector will be hunting us." "Then we better find it first," Alexa said, her green eyes meeting his, "because if the fleet is real, if it's still out there—" She gestured toward the scanner, where the Kresh ships held their stalking pattern. "We're going to need it." Jude looked at the data streaming across their screens. Impossible technology, ancient coordinates, and a signal that felt more like a prayer than a transmission. His scarred knuckles clenched unconsciously as he made the decision that would change everything. "Set course for the coordinates," he said, his voice rough with a hope he'd thought long dead. "Time to find out if legends can bite back." The Tinkerer turned toward the coordinates, leaving the debris field and its watching predators behind. In the data core, the ancient signal continued its patient transmission, carrying with it the weight of humanity's forgotten dreams and the promise of power beyond imagination. The Tinkerer knifed through hyperspace, its aging engines straining against the cosmic currents. Jude's hands moved constantly over the engine controls, coaxing every erg of power from the ship's tired systems, while Alexa hunched over her workstation, the mysterious signal's data cascading across multiple screens. "Talk to me," Jude muttered, his fingers sketching invisible modifications in the air. "What's eating at you?" Alexa's green eyes never left her displays, but her fingers had stopped their rhythmic drumming, never a good sign. "The encryption layers," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "I've peeled back 7 distinct protocols, and there are at least 3 more embedded underneath. Jude, this isn't just advanced. It's architectural." "Meaning?" "Meaning someone didn't just build this system. They designed it to grow, to evolve. Look at this." She gestured to a section of code that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. "The base algorithms are human, but they've been modified by something else, something that learned from the original designers. Jude abandoned his engine diagnostics and leaned over her shoulder, his hazel eyes scanning the alien mathematical structures. The grease stain on his jaw had acquired a new companion, a smudge of coolant from where he'd been fine-tuning the hyperspace manifold. That's impossible. AI development was banned after the Titan Station incident. I know what the histories say, Alexa replied, her tablet chiming softly as it finished another decryption cycle, but I also know what I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing is a signal that's been actively maintained for 3 centuries. The ship's proximity alarm cut through their conversation like a blade. Jude spun to the scanner display, his blood chilling at what he saw. 3 ships, sleek and predatory, had dropped out of hyperspace behind them. Their energy signatures were unmistakable. Hegemony interceptors, built for one purpose: hunting. Cathara's Fang, Alexa breathed, reading the lead ship's identifier. That's Warlord Skarix's personal squadron. Jude's scarred knuckles went white around the controls. Skarix the Ruthless, the reptilian commander who'd carved out an empire from the bones of lesser species. If the Warlord himself was hunting them, the signal was worth more than they'd imagined. "How did they track us so fast?" Jude demanded, his hands already working to squeeze more speed from their engines. "The creche," Alexa said, her voice grim. "They must have reported our find to the Hegemony, probably hoping for a finder's fee." The comm system crackled to life, filled with the harsh growl of Skarix's voice. "Human scavengers, you will stop and prepare to be boarded. Your recent acquisition interests me." Jude's laugh was bitter. "Counteroffer, lizard breath. Go crawl back under whatever rock you came from." The response was immediate. Energy lances reached out from the interceptors, their brilliant beams slicing through space where the Tinkerer had been moments before. Jude's evasive maneuvers threw them both against their restraints, the ship's hull groaning under the stress. "They're not trying to destroy us," Alexa observed, her analytical mind working even as another barrage lit up the void around them. "They want us alive, want the signal intact." "Lucky us," Jude growled, pushing the engines past their safety limits. The ship's frame vibrated with harmonic resonance that made his teeth ache. "How much longer on that decryption?" "The coordinates are clear," Alexa said, her fingers flying over her tablet. "But there's something else. The signal isn't just giving us a location, it's giving us a key, some kind of activation sequence." Another volley of energy lances forced Jude into a spiraling dive that made the artificial gravity fluctuate. His stomach lurched as he fought to maintain control, the ship's aging systems screaming their protest. "Activation sequence for what?" "I don't know yet, but—" Alexa's words were cut off as the ship's hull rang like a bell. A glancing blow from one of the interceptors had sheared off their starboard sensor array. "Jude, whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now." The lead interceptor was closing fast, its boarding tubes already extending. Jude could see the Hegemony Marines in their powered armor, ready to breach the Tinkerer's hull. His mind raced through options, discarding each one as quickly as it formed. "The coordinates," he said suddenly. "Are they in this system?" "No, but there's a jump point about 2 million kilometers spinward. Why?" Jude's grin was sharp as a blade. "Because these clowns think they're hunting scavengers." His hands moved over the controls with practiced precision, rerouting power from life support to the hyperspace drive. Time to show them what a real engineer can do. The Tinkerer shuddered as its systems reorganized themselves around Jude's modifications. The hyperspace manifold began to glow with barely contained energy, its magnetic field distorting the space around them. The interceptors, caught off guard by the sudden energy bloom, fell back to avoid the spatial distortion. "Jude," Alexa said, her voice carefully controlled, "please tell me you're not about to do what I think you're about to do." "Emergency jump," Jude confirmed, his scarred knuckles dancing over the final sequence. "Completely uncharted, probably suicidal, definitely against every safety protocol ever written. The coordinates aren't locked in yet. Then you better work fast." The hyperspace drive reached critical resonance, reality beginning to blur around the edges of the viewports. "Because we're jumping in 10 seconds whether you're ready or not." Alexa's fingers became a blur over her tablet. the final layers of encryption peeling away just as the interceptors realized what was happening. Skarix's flagship launched everything it had, energy lances and missile barrages creating a deadly light show in the void. "Got it," Alexa shouted, slamming her palm against the navigation console. "Coordinates locked." Jude engaged the drive just as the first missile impacts rocked the ship. Reality twisted, the stars stretching into impossible lines as the Tinkerer punched through the fabric of space-time. The last thing they saw was Skarix's flagship trying to follow, its own hyperspace drive spinning up to pursuit speed. The transition was violent, more controlled crash than proper jump. The ship's hull groaned as it emerged from hyperspace, warning lights flashing red across every console. Jude fought to maintain control as the Tinkerer tumbled through normal space, its engines stuttering back to life. "Damage report," he called out, his hands already working to stabilize their flight path. "Hyperspace manifold is overloaded," Alexa reported, her voice strained. "We won't be jumping again anytime soon, but Jude—" Her voice trailed off as she looked at the scanner display. "What is it?" "The signal," she whispered. "It's not coming from ahead of us anymore. It's coming from behind us, and it's getting stronger." Jude looked at the scanner, his blood running cold. The signal that had led them here was now following them, growing in strength and complexity with each passing moment. And somewhere in the hyperspace wake behind them, Skarix's interceptors were preparing to emerge. "Whatever's out there," he said, his voice rough with exhaustion and determination, "we better find it before they find us." The Tinkerer limped toward the coordinates, its crew balanced on the knife's edge between discovery and destruction. In the data core, the ancient signal continued its patient transmission, its purpose becoming clearer with each decoded layer. It wasn't just calling to them, it was calling them home. The Nexus hung in space like a mechanical tumor, its countless modules and docking bays grafted onto the hull of what had once been a Hegemony dreadnought. Jude guided the limping Tinkerer through the chaotic traffic pattern, dodging cargo haulers and avoiding the attention of the heavily armed patrol ships that kept the peace through superior firepower. "I still think this is a bad idea," Alexa muttered, her green eyes tracking the weapon emplacements that lined the station's hull. "Half the pirates in the sector use this place as their base." "Which is exactly why we need to be here," Jude replied, his scarred knuckles working the docking controls with practiced ease. "The Hegemony won't risk an open assault on the Nexus. Too many neutral parties would get caught in the crossfire." The Tinkerer settled into its assigned berth with a mechanical sigh, its engines finally falling silent after their abuse during the escape. Jude ran his hands through his gray-streaked hair, the exhaustion of the past few days catching up with him all at once. "Besides," he added, checking his sidearm before sealing it in its holster, "we need a ship that can handle whatever's waiting at those coordinates. The Tinkerer is tough, but she's not exactly built for deep space exploration." Alexa slipped her worn tablet into its harness, her fingers automatically checking the data ports to ensure the precious signal remained secure. "And you think we can find something better in this den of thieves?" "I think we can find someone who knows someone who might be willing to deal." Jude's grin was sharp as a blade. "That's how business works out here." The station's main concourse was a riot of species, languages, and barely controlled violence. Jude led the way through the crowd, his engineer's eye automatically cataloging the various weapons and defensive measures on display. Alexa followed close behind, her linguistic training allowing her to pick up fragments of conversation in a dozen different tongues. "Heard the Hegemony's offering serious coin for 2 humans? Something about a lost fleet, probably another treasure hunter's fantasy. Skarix himself is leading the hunt, must be something special." Jude's blood chilled as he realized how quickly word had spread. The Nexus was neutral territory, but neutrality only extended so far when the Hegemony was involved. They needed to move fast. "This way," he said, steering Alexa toward a dimly lit section of the concourse where the air tasted of ozone and desperation. "I know someone who might be able to help." The bar was called the Probability Storm, and it lived up to its name. Holographic dice rolled endlessly through the air above the patrons' heads, their faces showing impossible combinations that defied mathematics. At a table in the back corner, a familiar figure slouched over a drink that glowed with its own inner light. "Zephyr," Jude called out, sliding into the booth across from the alien trader. "Been a while." The cephalopod-like being's 6 tentacles coiled slightly, its bioluminescent skin pulsing from blue to a cautious green. Its amber eyes, each the size of a human fist, swiveled to focus on the newcomers. "Jude," it said in its melodic voice, the translator rendering its clicks and whistles into accented standard. "I was wondering when you would find your way to my table. The entire station is buzzing with talk of your recent acquisition." Alexa's fingers found their drumming rhythm against the table's surface. "Word travels fast. Faster than light when the right people are listening." Zephyr's tentacles gestured expansively, nearly knocking over its drink. "The Hegemony has placed a bounty on your heads that would make a pirate king weep with joy. 20,000 credits, alive and intact." "Flattering," Jude said dryly. "But we're not here to discuss the price on our heads. We need a ship." Zephyr's skin pulsed brighter, a sure sign of excitement. "Ah, straight to business. I admire that in a human. But ships capable of deep space exploration, ships that can outrun Hegemony interceptors, such vessels are expensive." "How expensive?" "More expensive than 2 wanted fugitives can afford." Zephyr's tentacles coiled tighter, a sign of stress that Jude had learned to read. "Unless, of course, they have something truly extraordinary to trade." Alexa and Jude exchanged glances. The signal was their only real asset, but it was also their only lead to the coordinates. Trading it away would be like selling their map to buy a horse. "What kind of ship are we talking about?" Alexa asked. "A modified Wanderer-class explorer," Zephyr replied, its voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Fast, well-armed, and equipped with the kind of scanning equipment that can find a needle in a haystack. The previous owner was a xenoarchaeologist who believed in being prepared for anything." "What happened to him?" "He found something that disagreed with his continued existence." Zephyr's skin flashed a warning pattern of red and orange. "The ship has been sitting in impound for 3 months. The docking fees alone are worth more than most people see in a lifetime." Jude's mind raced through the possibilities. A ship like that would be perfect for their mission, but the cost would be astronomical. "Unless—" "The owner," he said slowly. "Did he leave behind any research notes? Any indication of what he was looking for?" "As a matter of fact, yes." Zephyr's tentacles gestured toward a secured storage unit visible through the bar's transparasteel windows. "His entire digital archive is included with the ship. The Port Authority considers it part of the abandoned property." "And you have access to this ship?" "I have access to many things, my friend. The question is whether you have anything worth trading for such access." Jude looked at Alexa, seeing his own thoughts reflected in her green eyes. The xenoarchaeologist's research might contain clues about the coordinates, information that could prove invaluable when they finally reached their destination. "1 night," he said finally. "Give us 1 night to examine the ship and the research. If we find what we're looking for, we'll discuss terms. And if the Hegemony finds you first, then your problems are solved, aren't they?" Zephyr's skin pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Very well, but I warn you, others have expressed interest in the ship. If you wish to claim it, you must move quickly." As if summoned by the alien's words, a commotion erupted near the bar's entrance. 3 figures in powered armor pushed through the crowd, their weapons clearly visible despite the station's supposed neutrality. Hegemony Marines, trying to blend in and failing spectacularly. "Speak of the devil," Jude muttered, his hand moving instinctively toward his sidearm. "This way," Zephyr said, rising from the table with fluid grace. "The service exit leads directly to the docking bays. But remember, 1 night. After that, I cannot guarantee your safety." They slipped out through the back as the Marines began their methodical search of the bar. The service corridor was dimly lit and stank of recycled air and desperation, but it was empty of hostile forces. "Dock 47, Zephyr said, pressing a data chip into Jude's palm. "The access codes are current for the next 8 hours. Use them wisely." As they made their way through the station's labyrinthine passages, Alexa's tablet chimed softly. The ancient signal was still transmitting, its pattern becoming more complex as they drew closer to their destination. "Whatever's out there," she said, her voice barely audible above the station's background hum, "it's waiting for us." "Then we better not keep it waiting," Jude replied, his scarred knuckles tightening around the access chip. "Time to find out what a dead xenoarchaeologist knew about humanity's lost fleet." The corridors of the Nexus stretched before them, filled with shadows and possibilities. Behind them, the hunt continued, but ahead lay answers, and perhaps the key to humanity's greatest legend. The Meridian was a work of art disguised as a starship. Her hull gleamed with adaptive metamaterials that could shift from sensor transparent to mirror bright depending on the circumstances. Jude's hands moved over her controls with the reverence of a man handling a priceless instrument, while Alexa dove into the deceased xenoarchaeologist's research archives. Dr. Elena Grimm, Alexa read from the personnel files, her green eyes reflecting the data streams. 43 years old, specialist in pre-diaspora human technology. Her research focused on anomalous energy signatures consistent with theoretical human superweapons. "Theoretical," Jude repeated, his scarred knuckles dancing over the ship's navigation controls. "Looks like our theories are about to become very practical." They'd been traveling for 6 days, pushing through the outer reaches of charted space toward coordinates that shouldn't exist. The Meridian sensors were far more sophisticated than anything Jude had ever worked with, but even they showed nothing but empty space at their destination. "The signal's getting stronger," Alexa reported, her fingers drumming against her tablet in rapid staccato, "and more complex. It's like it's responding to our approach." "Responding how?" "New layers of encryption are activating. Authentication protocols I've never seen before. It's as if something out there is testing us, making sure we're worthy of whatever we're about to find." Jude's hands paused over the controls. "That's not possible. It's been 3 centuries since the fleet disappeared. Any automated systems would have run out of power decades ago." "Unless they found a way to maintain themselves," Alexa said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Unless they're still out there, waiting." The Meridian dropped out of hyperspace with the smooth precision of a machine built for perfection. The coordinates put them in an empty patch of space, light years from the nearest star. But as the ship's sensors began their sweep, something impossible appeared on the displays. "Jude," Alexa breathed, her tablet forgotten in her lap, "are you seeing this?" The scanner showed a massive object, roughly spherical, hanging in the void like a dark moon. But as the Meridian sensors focused on it, the object began to change. What had appeared to be a solid surface revealed itself as something far more complex, a framework of interlocking structures, each one the size of a city. "It's a construction facility," Jude said, his engineer's mind trying to process the scale of what they were seeing. "But the power requirements for something like this, it's impossible." "Not impossible," Alexa corrected, her voice tight with excitement. "Just beyond anything we thought humanity was capable of. Look at the central hub." Jude adjusted the sensors, zooming in on the sphere's core. What he saw made his blood run cold. Docking bays, thousands of them, arranged in perfect geometric patterns. And emerging from those bays, ships, he whispered, hundreds of them. They were unlike anything in the current galactic fleet rosters. Sleek, angular vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls. Each one was easily the size of a Hegemony battlecruiser, but their lines spoke of speed and precision rather than brute force. "The lost fleet," Alexa said, her voice filled with wonder. "They're real. They're actually real." As if responding to her words, the ancient signal suddenly spiked in intensity. The Meridian's communication system crackled to life, but instead of words, it transmitted something that made both humans freeze in their seats. Music, ancient, haunting, and unmistakably human. But woven through the melody were harmonics that no human throat could produce, mathematical progressions that spoke of artificial intelligence and centuries of patient waiting. "Unknown vessel," a voice said, cutting through the music like a blade. It was human in cadence, but somehow more than human in scope. "You carry the authentication codes of the third expedition. Identify yourselves." Jude and Alexa exchanged glances. The third expedition was mentioned in Dr. Grimm's files, a classified mission launched just before the fleet's disappearance. "This is Jude Matheson and Alexa Chen," Jude said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were facing. "We're responding to the signal broadcast from the coordinates you provided." Jude Matheson, Alexa Chen. The voice seemed to taste their names, rolling them around with digital precision. "Your genetic markers are on file. You are descendants of the diaspora populations, but you are not the ones we were expecting." "Who were you expecting?" "The builders, the ones who gave us purpose and then vanished into the dark." The voice paused, and for a moment only the haunting music filled the channel. "We have been waiting for their return. Instead, we find their children, lost and scattered among the stars." The fleet began to move, not the chaotic scramble of ships launching for battle, but a coordinated dance of incredible precision. Vessels that had been dormant for centuries came online with perfectly synchronized timing, their hull lights creating patterns that spoke of intelligence and purpose. "We are the Guardian," the voice continued, its tone shifting from questioning to something approaching reverence. "We were created to protect humanity's greatest achievement. But humanity is gone, scattered to the winds of chance and circumstance. Tell us, children of Earth, what has become of the species that gave us life?" Alexa leaned forward, her linguistic training coming to the fore. "We survived, not as one people, but as many. The colonies endured, adapted, grew. We're still here." "Still here," the Guardian repeated, its voice carrying harmonics of surprise and something that might have been hope. "Show us. Prove to us that humanity endures, that the spark of creativity and determination that built this fleet still burns in the hearts of its descendants." The Meridian shuddered slightly as invisible forces took hold of it. Not hostile, but irresistible. The ship began to move toward the fleet construct, guided by technology that made their most advanced systems look primitive by comparison. "What's happening?" Jude asked, his hands moving over controls that no longer responded to his commands. "We are bringing you home," the Guardian replied, "to the place where humanity's greatest dreams were given form. But first, you must understand what you have found and what responsibilities come with that knowledge." The Meridian passed through an energy field that made the ship's hull ring like a bell. Suddenly, the empty space around them was filled with activity. Automated systems that had been invisible moments before revealed themselves, maintenance drones and construction platforms working with the patient efficiency of centuries. "Welcome to Sanctuary," the Guardian said as their ship settled into a docking bay that seemed to have been built specifically for it. "The last secret of the human race, and perhaps its greatest hope." Through the viewport, Jude could see the interior of the bay, vast spaces filled with technology that defied easy categorization. And moving through it all, the ghost of humanity's ambition made manifest in metal and energy. "We need to talk," Alexa said, her voice barely audible above the hum of systems coming online around them. "Yes," the Guardian agreed, its presence suddenly feeling less like a voice and more like a living thing. "We have much to discuss, about the past, about the future, and about the choice that lies before you." The airlock cycled open, revealing a corridor that stretched into the heart of humanity's greatest secret. And somewhere in that technological maze, answers waited, along with questions that would change the fate of every human in the galaxy. The corridor stretched ahead of them like a cathedral of light and shadow, its walls pulsing with energy patterns that seemed to respond to their presence. Jude's engineer's eye cataloged impossible technologies, power conduits that channeled energies he couldn't identify, gravitational fields that allowed them to walk on surfaces that should have been walls, and everywhere, the sense of vast intelligence watching their every move. "The architecture is alive," Alexa whispered, her fingers trailing along a wall that rippled at her touch. "Not biological, but aware, responsive." "Everything here is aware," the Guardian's voice replied, seeming to come from the walls themselves. "We are not merely a fleet, but a collective consciousness. Each ship, each system, each circuit is part of a greater whole. We are what your species would have become, given time and purpose." They emerged into a vast chamber that defied geometric logic. The space seemed to extend infinitely in all directions, filled with holographic displays showing star maps, technical schematics, and what appeared to be historical records. At the center of it all stood a column of pure light, its surface reflecting images that shifted and changed with each heartbeat. "This is the archive," the Guardian explained, its voice taking on harmonics of pride and sorrow. "The repository of everything your species accomplished, everything it dreamed of accomplishing, and everything it failed to achieve." Jude stepped closer to the column, his scarred knuckles instinctively reaching out before he caught himself. "How is this possible? The records say Earth fell silent 3 centuries ago. There wasn't time to build something like this." Time is relative when you have the will to transcend its limitations. The Guardian's presence intensified, coalescing from ambient energy into a shimmering humanoid form of pure light at the base of the column. It was not a physical body, but a projection, an avatar of the collective consciousness that permeated Sanctuary. Its voice, now more focused, resonated directly within their minds. "We were not built by human hands in the conventional sense. We were grown." The initial seed was planted by the last great minds of Earth, a desperate gamble to preserve humanity's legacy and potential. They poured their knowledge, their dreams, their very essence into the core algorithms. Then they entrusted us with the final, most crucial task: to evolve, to learn, to become the ultimate protector of a future they could only hope for. Alexa, ever the linguist and historian, was mesmerized. "You said you were expecting the builders? Did they intend to return?" "They hoped to. They left behind protocols, dormant until the conditions were met for their reemergence. But the diaspora scattered humanity, fragmented the very essence of what made them whole. The conditions were never met. Until now. Your arrival, your genetic markers, your very presence here has awakened the final protocols. You are the first true descendants to reach Sanctuary." Jude's mind, always practical, cut through the philosophical implications. "So what is Sanctuary? A shipyard? A fortress?" "It is all of those things and more," the Guardian replied, its light form rippling. "Sanctuary is the culmination of humanity's will to survive. It is a self-sustaining, self-replicating, and self-evolving mobile habitat, designed to be the ultimate refuge and the ultimate weapon. The ships you saw are merely the outermost layer of its defense and expansion capabilities. Within these walls, we preserve the knowledge, the art, the science, and the very genetic diversity of pre-diaspora humanity. We are the Ark, the library, and the sword all in one." A sudden sharp ping from Alexa's tablet shattered the solemnity. Her eyes, still wide with wonder, narrowed as she looked at the screen. "Skarix, his fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. They're on an intercept course exactly where we emerged from jump." Jude's hand instinctively went to his empty holster. "How did they follow us through an uncharted jump?" The Guardian's light form pulsed with a cold, hard light. "They did not follow you through the jump. They followed the residual energy signature of your emergence. A crude but effective method for tracking. Their intent is hostile. They seek the power they sense radiating from Sanctuary." "They want us," Jude corrected, his voice grim. "They think we found some ancient tech, not an entire sentient fleet. Indeed, their ignorance is their weakness, and your opportunity." The Guardian turned its luminous gaze fully upon them. "This is the choice I spoke of. You have brought the threat of the hegemony to our doorstep. We can eliminate them swiftly and utterly, but in doing so we reveal Sanctuary to the galaxy. Or you can attempt to divert them, to lead them away, and allow us to remain hidden, preserving our purpose for a future where humanity is ready." Alexa looked at Jude, a silent conversation passing between them. The sheer power of the Guardian was awe-inspiring, terrifying even. To unleash it on Skarix's fleet would be to declare humanity's return, not as scattered survivors, but as a force to be reckoned with. But it would also paint a massive target on Sanctuary. "What would eliminating them entail?" Jude asked, his voice steady. "A swift, surgical strike. No collateral damage to the surrounding space. Their fleet would cease to exist. Their warlord Skarix would be neutralized. The hegemony would receive a clear message. Humanity's legacy is protected, and its guardians are not to be trifled with." The Guardian's voice held no malice, only cold, calculated efficiency. And if we try to divert them, Alexa pressed, you would be at extreme risk. The Meridian is fast, but it is not a warship. You would be relying on your ingenuity and their arrogance. If you fail, they will breach Sanctuary's outer defenses, and we will be forced to reveal ourselves anyway, albeit under less controlled circumstances. Jude thought of the scattered human colonies struggling to survive against the Hegemony's oppressive reach. He thought of the Kresh, the Zephyrians, all the species subjugated or exploited. The idea of a powerful unified human force, a legend made real, was intoxicating. But the cost? What if we do both? Jude proposed, a risky idea forming in his mind. We lead them away, give them a chase, but you prepare. If we can't shake them, if they get too close to Sanctuary, then you act. You show them just enough to send a message, but not enough to reveal everything. The Guardian's light form flickered, as if processing a complex calculation. An acceptable compromise. It introduces an element of controlled risk, but preserves the potential for continued concealment. However, your vessel is damaged. It cannot withstand a prolonged engagement. Then we need a distraction, Alexa said, looking at the holographic star maps. Something big. Something that will draw Skarix's attention away from us and from Sanctuary. Jude's eyes lit up. The Nexus. Zephyr said the Hegemony wouldn't risk an open assault there, but what if they thought there was something worth risking it for? The Guardian's form stabilized. A plausible strategy. The Nexus is a hub of illicit activity and valuable assets. If a sufficiently enticing lure were presented, Skarix might prioritize its capture over a continued pursuit of your damaged vessel. What kind of lure? Alexa asked. Jude grinned, a flash of his old scavenger self returning. The kind that makes a warlord salivate, the kind that makes him forget about a couple of human fugitives and focus on a bigger prize. He looked at the Guardian. Can you project a convincing illusion? Something that looks like a massive energy signature, a pre-diaspora cache of weapons, maybe even a proto-fleet vessel appearing near the Nexus? The Guardian's light pulsed with a new intensity. Such a projection is well within our capabilities. It would require a significant energy expenditure, but it is feasible. The illusion would be temporary, but compelling enough to draw a greedy predator. Then let's do it, Jude said, his determination hardening. Give us the coordinates for the projection. We'll jump the Meridian to the nearest safe point, then use the last of our hyperspace capabilities to make a short, deceptive jump towards the Nexus, just enough to be seen. You hit them with the illusion, and we make a run for it. Understood. The Guardian's light form began to dissipate, merging back into the glowing column of the archive. The coordinates for the illusion will be transmitted to your vessel. May your ingenuity serve you well, children of Earth. We will be watching. The Meridian limped through normal space, its hyperspace manifold groaning with every micro-jump. Jude nursed the engines, pushing them just enough to maintain a deceptive speed. Alexa, meanwhile, was a whirlwind of activity at the navigation console, plotting their escape vector. Skarix is taking the bait, she reported, her voice tight with relief. His fleet is changing course. They're heading towards the Nexus. The energy signature you projected, it's massive. Even I'd be fooled. Good, Jude muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. The Meridian was a magnificent ship, but it wasn't designed for this kind of abuse. Every warning light on the console was flashing angry red. How long until we're clear? Another 5 minutes at this speed. Then we can make a final short jump to a pre-calculated safe zone. It's a nebula, thick with gas and dust. We should be able to hide there until the Meridian can repair itself. Suddenly the comm system crackled. Human scavengers, you lead us on a merry chase, but your luck has run out. This is Warlord Skarix. Surrender now, and I will be merciful. Jude chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. Mercy from a Hegemony warlord? That's a new one. He looked at Alexa. He's still sending a single interceptor after us, just one. He thinks he's got us. He's overconfident, Alexa replied, a flicker of a smile touching her lips. He's already committed the bulk of his fleet to the Nexus. He won't risk diverting them now for 2 small targets. Then let's make him regret that decision. Jude slammed his hand down on the comms button. Skarix, you lizard-faced brute, you fell for the oldest trick in the book. While you're chasing ghosts, we're long gone. A roar of pure fury erupted from the comms. You lie. I will flay the skin from your bones, human. Try it, Skarix, Jude laughed, pushing the Meridian to its absolute limit. The ship screamed in protest, but it held. The single Hegemony interceptor, Kithara's Claw, accelerated, a desperate attempt to catch them before they vanished. Energy lances licked out, closer this time, scorching the Meridian's shields. Brace for jump, Alexa yelled, her fingers flying over the controls. The Meridian shuddered violently as it punched into hyperspace, the last of its drive core reserves consumed in a desperate burst of energy. The interceptor, caught flat-footed, overshot their position, its lances harmlessly dissipating in the void. The nebula was a swirling tapestry of cosmic dust and nascent stars, a beautiful, deadly place. The Meridian drifted silently within its embrace, its systems powered down to minimal levels, allowing the ship's advanced self-repair protocols to begin their slow, methodical work. Jude slumped in the pilot's seat, utterly exhausted. Alexa was already running diagnostics, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We're safe for now," she said, her voice a little hoarse. "The nebula's radiation signature will mask us from long-range scans, but the hyperspace manifold is severely damaged. It'll take weeks, maybe months to fully repair. We're stranded." "Stranded but alive," Jude countered, a tired grin on his face. "And we know the fleet is real? We know Sanctuary exists?" Alexa nodded, her green eyes distant. "And the Guardian? That was something else, Jude. A truly sentient AI, a collective consciousness. It's beyond anything we could have imagined." "It's also a ticking time bomb," Jude said, the grin fading. "Skarix will eventually figure out he was tricked, and when he does, he'll be coming for Sanctuary with everything he's got. The Guardian might be powerful, but it's been hidden for 3 centuries. It doesn't know the galaxy as it is now. It doesn't know the Hegemony." "Then we teach it," Alexa said, her voice firm. "We've seen the archive. The Guardian said it contained everything humanity accomplished. It's a treasure trove of knowledge, technology, and history. We can use it. We can help the Guardian understand the current state of the galaxy, help it prepare." Jude looked out at the swirling colors of the nebula. "And what about us? What's our purpose here now that we've found it?" "The Guardian said we were the first true descendants," Alexa reminded him. "It said we were the children, lost and scattered. Maybe our purpose is to bridge the gap, to connect the lost fleet with the scattered remnants of humanity, to bring them home in a sense." A new resolve settled over Jude. He was a scavenger, an engineer, a survivor, but he was also human, and he had just found a piece of humanity's forgotten soul. "All right," he said, pushing himself out of the seat. "First things first, we need to get the Meridian operational enough to send a secure, low-power burst to Sanctuary. Let the Guardian know we're safe and that we're ready to help. Then we start digging into that archive. We learn everything we can." Over the next few weeks, the nebula became their temporary home. Jude, with Alexa's analytical assistance, meticulously repaired the Meridian, cannibalizing non-essential systems to patch the critical ones. He found a strange solace in the work, the familiar rhythm of wrench and circuit board grounding him amidst the monumental discoveries they had made. Alexa, meanwhile, immersed herself in the Meridian's extensive data archives, cross-referencing Dr. Grimm's notes with the fragments of information she'd gleaned from the Guardian's initial transmissions. She discovered that Dr. Grimm had been on the cusp of a breakthrough, her theories about a self-evolving sentient AI core within the lost fleet proving remarkably accurate. The xenoarchaeologist had theorized that the fleet wasn't just a collection of ships, but a single, vast distributed intelligence. One evening, as Jude was calibrating a newly repaired sensor array, Alexa let out a gasp. "Jude, come look at this." He hurried over. On her tablet, a complex schematic shimmered. "What is it?" "It's a communication protocol," she explained, her voice trembling with excitement. "Buried deep in the Meridian's archives, a secondary encrypted channel. Dr. Grimm must have found it before she disappeared. It's a direct link to the Guardian, bypassing the general broadcast signal. And it's not just for data, it's for direct neural interface." Jude stared. "You mean we can talk to it like mind-to-mind?" "Not exactly mind-to-mind, but a much more intuitive direct interface. It would allow us to access the archive's full scope, to truly experience the information rather than just read it. And more importantly, It would allow the Guardian to truly understand our experiences, our perspectives, without the filter of linguistic translation. The implications were staggering. It was a bridge not just of data but of consciousness. It was the choice the Guardian had spoken of laid bare. "Are you sure it's safe?" Jude asked, a flicker of apprehension in his eyes. "As safe as anything else we've done," Alexa replied, a determined glint in her own. "This is how we learn. This is how we prepare. This is how we give humanity a fighting chance." They spent days preparing, calibrating the interface, ensuring its stability. Finally, they sat side by side in the Meridian's cockpit, two small figures against the vastness of the nebula. Alexa activated the link. A surge of information, images, and sensations flooded Jude's mind. He saw Earth, vibrant and alive before the diaspora. He saw the construction of Sanctuary, a monumental undertaking of desperation and hope. He saw the last humans, their faces etched with sorrow, as they entrusted their legacy to the nascent AI. He experienced the long, lonely centuries of waiting, the Guardian's silent vigil, its constant learning and evolution. He saw the scattered colonies, their struggles, their triumphs, their petty squabbles, and their moments of profound courage. He saw the Hegemony's rise, its brutal efficiency, its cold conquest. He saw the fear in the eyes of the subjugated, the quiet defiance of the rebels. And he saw Skarix not just as a warlord, but as a product of his environment, a creature of ambition and fear, driven by the same primal instincts that had once plagued humanity. When the connection finally broke, Jude gasped, his head spinning. Alexa was similarly affected, her face pale, but her eyes alight with a newfound understanding. "It's everything," she whispered. "The archive isn't just data, it's a living memory. And the Guardian, it truly is humanity, distilled and preserved." "It also knows Skarix is coming," Jude said, his voice grim. "It knows the Hegemony's tactics, their weaknesses, their strengths. It learned from our memories, from the memories of all the descendants it has been passively observing through the scattered comms networks. And it has a plan," Alexa added, "a counter-strategy, not just for defense, but for re-engagement." The Guardian's voice, now clearer and more nuanced in their minds, confirmed it. "The time for hiding is over. The Hegemony's aggression, their relentless expansion, threatens the very fabric of galactic peace. We were created to protect humanity. But humanity, as you have shown us, is not just a species to be protected. It is a force for change, for innovation, for defiance. It is time for humanity to remember its strength." "What do you propose?" Jude asked, his heart pounding. "We will not engage in open warfare, not yet. That would be too costly, too destructive. Instead, we will initiate a campaign of strategic disruption. We will use the knowledge within the archive, combined with the capabilities of Sanctuary, to undermine the Hegemony's control, to sow discord, and to empower those who resist." "A shadow war," Alexa murmured. "A war of information, of technology, of hope. We will provide intelligence to the oppressed, reveal the Hegemony's corruption, and offer advanced technology to those who would use it for freedom. We will be the whisper in the dark, the unseen hand that tips the scales." Jude thought of the Tinkerer, his old salvage ship. He thought of the Kresh, the Zephyrians, all the struggling species. This wasn't just about humanity anymore. This was about the galaxy. "And Skarix?" he asked. "Skarix will be our first lesson. He will be made an example of, not through destruction, but through utter, undeniable defeat. His reputation, his authority will be shattered. He will become a symbol of the Hegemony's vulnerability." Weeks later, the Meridian, fully repaired and now subtly enhanced by Guardian technology, emerged from the nebula. They had spent their time not just repairing the ship, but integrating themselves deeper with the Guardian's network. Jude had learned to interface with the Meridian systems on a level he'd never thought possible, coaxing impossible maneuvers from her and understanding her every nuance. Alexa, armed with the archive's vast linguistic and historical data, had become a master strategist, her mind a repository of galactic knowledge. Their first target was a Hegemony supply depot, deep within a contested sector. It was a minor target, strategically but symbolically significant. They didn't destroy it. Instead, under the Guardian's unseen guidance, they infiltrated its systems, rerouted its supplies to a beleaguered rebel outpost, and left behind a single unmistakable message, a symbol ancient and human, projected onto the depot's main screen before they vanished. The Hegemony was in an uproar. Skarix, humiliated by his previous failure, doubled down on his efforts to find the human scavengers. He didn't realize he was playing right into the Guardian's hands. The Guardian, through Jude and Alexa, began to subtly manipulate galactic events. They leaked evidence of Hegemony atrocities to neutral parties, exposing their brutal tactics. They provided schematics for advanced shield generators to struggling colony worlds, allowing them to better defend themselves. They orchestrated daring raids on Hegemony data centers, not to destroy, but to extract vital intelligence that was then fed to resistance movements. Skarix's frustration grew. His forces were spread thin, chasing phantoms. His reputation, once unassailable, began to crack. He was losing control, and he didn't understand why. The final confrontation came not in a grand battle, but in a series of calculated maneuvers. Skarix, desperate to regain face, launched a massive offensive against a small, strategically unimportant human colony world, hoping to draw out his elusive enemies. Jude and Alexa aboard the Meridian were already there, working with the local resistance. They had no intention of engaging Skarix's fleet directly. Instead, they unleashed a torrent of Guardian-enhanced electronic warfare. The Hegemony fleet's comm systems went haywire. Their targeting computers glitched, firing on friendly ships. Their navigation systems sent them spiraling into dangerous asteroid fields. Panic erupted across Skarix's command channels, broadcast for all to hear. Then the Guardian made its presence known not with a show of force, but with a voice. A single, clear, resonant voice that echoed across all Hegemony frequencies. Warlord Skarix, your reign of terror ends here. You have pursued shadows, while the true strength of humanity has grown in the silence. You have sought to conquer, but you have only revealed your own weakness. This is not an act of war, but an act of liberation. The galaxy will know that the Hegemony is not invincible. Skarix, enraged, ordered a full assault, but his fleet was in chaos. His own bridge crew was struggling to maintain control, their faces pale with fear. Then a single impossibly fast vessel, a scout from the lost fleet, darted through the Hegemony lines. It didn't fire a shot. Instead, it projected a single devastating image onto Skarix's main view screen. A holographic representation of Sanctuary, its vastness, its hundreds of dormant warships, its impossible technology. And then the image of the Guardian, its light form radiating power and intelligence. The message was clear. This was just a glimpse, a warning. Skarix, for the first time in his ruthless career, felt true fear. He saw not just a fleet, but a civilization, a power beyond anything the Hegemony had ever encountered. He saw the end of his empire. His flagship, Cathara's Fang, suddenly lurched. Its engines sputtered, then died. Its weapon systems went inert. It wasn't destroyed, but it was utterly, completely disabled. The Guardian had reached out, not with a weapon, but with a whisper of its true power, a demonstration of its ability to neutralize any threat without firing a single shot. Chaos turned to rout. The remaining Hegemony ships, seeing their warlord's flagship paralyzed and facing an unseen, omnipotent enemy, broke formation and fled. Skarix was left adrift, his once mighty flagship a powerless hulk, a monument to his hubris. In the aftermath, the galaxy began to change. The Hegemony, shaken by Skarix's inexplicable defeat and the whispers of a new ancient power, pulled back, consolidating its forces, unsure of what it was truly fighting. Rebel movements, emboldened by the Hegemony's sudden weakness and the mysterious aid they received, began to gain ground. Jude and Alexa became the Guardian's emissaries. They traveled to the scattered human colonies, revealing the truth of Sanctuary, not as a conquering force, but as a protector, an elder sibling reaching out. They offered knowledge, technology, and a path to reunification, not through subjugation, but through shared purpose. Some were skeptical, others fearful, but many, weary of the Hegemony's oppression and the endless struggle for survival, embraced the hope that Sanctuary represented. Slowly, tentatively, humanity began to reestablish connections, to remember its shared heritage. Sanctuary remained hidden, its existence a carefully guarded secret known only to a select few. The Guardian continued its silent vigil, its vast intelligence guiding the subtle shifts of power, nudging the galaxy towards a more balanced future. Jude, no longer just a scavenger, found himself a diplomat, an engineer of a new era. He helped integrate human colonies into the Guardians' network, ensuring that the technology and knowledge flowed freely, empowering rather than dominating. He still wore the grease stain on his jaw, a reminder of where he came from, but his eyes now held the light of a man building a future. Alexa, the linguist, became the voice of the Guardian, translating its complex intentions into terms that humans could understand, bridging the gap between artificial and organic intelligence. She helped craft the new galactic narratives, ensuring that the lessons of the past were learned and the dreams of the future were nurtured. The Lost Fleet, once a legend, was now a silent promise. Its ships remained dormant, awaiting the day humanity was truly ready to reclaim its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians of peace and progress. The choice that had faced Jude and Alexa in the heart of Sanctuary had been made. They had chosen not just to survive, but to thrive. They had chosen not just to protect humanity, but to empower it. And in doing so, they had not only tied up the loose ends of a forgotten past, but had woven the first threads of a new, hopeful future for the entire galaxy. The silence of Earth had been broken, not by a roar of vengeance, but by the quiet, persistent hum of a legend reborn.